Now in this video, let us try to print the matrix. What we have created in our previous video, the matrix 1, where I have populated it with some data item. Now let us try to print all of them. So let us write a for loop. So just remember your array. For an array, basically you have used one for loop or a while loop, any type of loop, which basically was iterating over each element or each index of the array, and while iterating over each index it was printing that element. So this is how your one-dimensional array would look like. So I'm just writing the code so that you can easily compare it with matrix. So let's say this should be a structure of the code to print all the array elements. So let's say this should be a for uh, int index equals 0, because array always starts from 0, index less than the size of the array. Let's call it size of 1D array. 1D array, that is the total number of elements inside that array. Or let's use the similar variable name that I have commented out earlier, size of 1D array 1, and then uh, this is index plus plus. So that is it. And inside this for loop you have used system.out.print, then all the numbers. Let's say this is the array name, and then inside the opening and closing box bracket you specified the index, right? So this is how you have printed the elements in one-dimensional array. But I am just commenting it out. I just want to keep this code so that you can easily compare it with the matrix. So this is how you can print the element. All right, so this is the printing for one-dimensional array. And now let us try to do print all the two-dimensional array. How to, I mean, that matrix. So since array has only one dimension, you could do it with only one index. But as I have told before, since matrix has two dimension, you have to use two different loops to print all the elements. So let us do that. So for, let's call my first index as row. Instead of saying index, I am using row, equals 0. And now how many different rows are there in this matrix? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different rows, but it starts from 0, so that means it will go from row 0, 1, 2, 3, like this. So it should iterate until row is less than 4, or you can say less than equals 3, something like that. So row less than 4, that is total number of rows, and then row plus plus, like this. And then this is my first, or let's say loop for loop to iterate over rows, iterate on row. Okay, and then the next loop, when for each of these rows you have to iterate over each of the column. So what you can do is for use another for loop. This time you want to iterate over the column. Let's call it col equals 0, because each row has column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. Then again row 1 also have column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, something like that. So let us iterate until the last column. So how many columns are there in each row? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 different columns are there, but the counting starting from 0. So it should be col less than 5. or you can write like call less than equals 4, then call plus plus. So this loop is to iterate on column. All right, so this is how you can write the loop, and well, of course, you have to put everything inside the opening and closing curly brace inside the for loop. Now, inside this loop, you can just write system dot out dot print, then this, and what you need to do, our variable name was matrix1, so let us copy this, and in order to access each of the element, again you have to use two different indexes. The first set of opening and closing curly brace closing box bracket is for row index, so write down row. All right, because row is the index, row is the variable name or the index variable name here, which is iterating over each of the rows in this for loop. So this is row. And then in the second set of opening and closing box bracket, you have to specify the column index, which is iterating over each of the columns of each row. So, and in order to just put some space over here, I'm just giving a space over here so that each number is separated by a space. Now let me let me run this program and let us see what it gives. So let us run this program, and as you can see, it printed all the numbers. So here I have printed syntax accepted from the previous video. So first let us put an end line break over here so that everything looks okay. So now if I just run it, well, so all the elements have been printed like 5, 9, 6, 22, 30. Just observe this matrix like 5, 9, 6, 22, 30 in the first row. Then in the next row 6, 35, 49, 100. Just as you can see in here. Then the next row has like 8, 72, 769, 86, and then 50. So this row 2. And then in the other part of the screen, you can see 700, 541, and 60, which is row 3. So as you can see, it is printing all the numbers. But well, since this is a matrix, I want to print it in the form of a matrix, or let's say in the form of a table. That is, first row will appear in one row, then in the next line it will print the row 1, then in the next line it will print row 2, then in the next line it will print row 3, like that way. So how can we do that? In order to format these in order to format this print, I have to use another print, another line break somewhere. So where do I want to put a line break? I want to put a line break after every row. So after every row, or let's say after all the columns in a row have been iterated, I want to put a line break. So 5, 9, 6, 22, 30, all the columns in row 0 are iterated and printed, and then I want to put a line break. Then again, let's say 6, 35, 49, 140, like this. After all the columns in the second row 1, I want to print another line break. Then all the elements in row number 2, which is 8, 72, 769, and 86 and 50, I want to put some line break over here. So what can I do? So this inner for loop is basically iterating over the columns of each row, and after that I want to put a line break. So let us write down a system after this inner for loop, but inside the outer for loop I am just printing system dot out dot print and then a backslash n. And this will put a line break after iterating over each column of each after iterating over all the columns in one single row. So let us try to run this program and let us see whether it is giving me the proper result or not. And well, as you can see, in the first line you are getting the row 0, that is 5, 9, 6, 22 and 30. Then in the second line you are getting 6, 35, 49, 100 and 40, which is nothing but row 1. Then the next one is 8, 72, 769, 86 and 50, which is row 2. And finally 700, 541 and 60, which is nothing but your row 3. So this is how you can print a matrix.